It was a typical day at a small community school on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. Melania Trump's visit had caused a stir. Teachers were trying to keep the children organized, but the excitement was palpable. For those kids, meeting someone so famous was like encountering a character from a fairy tale. Melania arrived with a gentle smile, dressed in an elegant yet understated outfit. She moved naturally among the children, bending down to hear their curious questions and offering words of encouragement. Her presence was serene, almost maternal, and seemed to light up the room. Then, a thin and shy boy with big, curious eyes raised his hand. He was sitting in the back row of the auditorium, almost hidden by his peers. When Melania noticed him and pointed in his direction, the room fell silent. "What's your name?" she asked, smiling. "My name is Tommy," he replied, almost whispering. Melania walked over to him and knelt down, meeting him at his eye level. "And what's your question, Tommy?" she said in a kind tone. Tommy took a deep breath, as if he needed to summon all the courage he had to speak. "Do you believe in God? And what does God think of us when we do bad things?" The room went completely silent. The children stopped fiddling with their notebooks, and even the teachers held their breath. The simplicity and depth of the question seemed to carry an emotional weight no one had anticipated at that moment. Melania, however, did not rush to answer. She looked at Tommy with an understanding gaze, realizing that this question was not just a child's curiosity. There was something deeper there. "May I tell you a story, Tommy?" she asked. He nodded, curious. Melania began to speak in a serene yet engaging tone. "When I was a girl your age, I lived in a very different place. My family was simple, and we didn't have much. But one thing my mother always told me was that God was with us, even when things were hard." Tommy's eyes sparkled with curiosity, and the other children were completely absorbed in the story. "I remember one specific day," Melania continued. "I did something wrong. I broke a vase that was very important to my mother. I was so scared to tell her because I thought she would be very angry and might never forgive me." "What did you do?" Tommy asked, unable to contain his curiosity. "I hid," Melania said, smiling lightly. "But my mother found me. And do you know what she did? Instead of yelling at me, she hugged me. She said, 'We all make mistakes, Melania. What's important is to learn from them and try to be better tomorrow.'" Melania paused, looking directly at Tommy. "And you know, Tommy, I believe God is like that too. He doesn't expect us to be perfect. He knows we make mistakes sometimes. But what he wants is for us to learn and try to be a better version of ourselves. He loves us, even when we mess up." An answer that touched hearts. Tommy looked at her, and his eyes were filled with tears. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief and understanding. "So, he's not mad at me forever?" he asked, his voice trembling. Melania shook her head, smiling. "No, Tommy. God never gives up on us. He always gives us another chance." Tommy couldn't hold back his tears, and they began to stream down his face. Melania gently hugged him, while the other children and adults in the room watched in silence, many visibly moved as well. "Thank you, Mrs. Trump," Tommy said, wiping his eyes. "I just wanted to know if he still likes me." "He likes you very much, Tommy," Melania replied. "And I like you too." That interaction not only left a mark on Tommy's life, but also left a lasting impression on everyone present. Teachers remarked on how Melania's response had touched such a profound topic in a simple and accessible way. In the days that followed, Tommy seemed more confident, as if he had found new strength within himself. The impact of that visit continued to be talked about, not just because of the presence of a former First Lady, but because she stopped to listen and answer a boy's question, changing his perspective. Melania Trump's response echoed in Tommy's mind as he walked home that afternoon. He couldn't forget her words. God never gives up on us. For a boy who often felt lost and insecure, those words were a beacon in the darkness. When he arrived home, his mother, Sarah, noticed something different about him. Tommy was usually shy and avoided talking about his feelings, but that day, he came through the door with a sparkle in his eyes. "Mom, I need to tell you what happened today," he said, almost breathless. Sarah put down what she was doing and sat beside him on the couch, ready to listen. I asked Mrs. Trump about God, and she told me that he doesn't give up on us, even when we do bad things. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. She knew how much Tommy struggled to understand the hard things in life, especially since his father had left home. The guilt he carried, even without reason, seemed to have eased a bit in that moment. "That's beautiful, son," she said, hugging him. "And she's right. God loves you, and so do I." In the days that followed, Tommy started acting differently. He seemed more confident, more willing to face the challenges of school and everyday life. Teachers noticed his change and commented on how he was participating more in activities and talking more with his classmates. Melania Trump, for her part, also did not forget about Tommy. That night, reflecting on her visit, she wrote in her journal, "Today, a simple question reminded me of something important. Sometimes, the simplest words can bring profound comfort. Tommy showed me that children have a sensitivity we often underestimate. I hope he never forgets how loved he is." About a month later, the school received a surprise. Melania Trump decided to return to visit Tommy's class, this time bringing special gifts for the children. Among the gifts were books about kindness, faith, and self-confidence. When Melania entered the room, Tommy ran to her, holding a small envelope he had prepared with his mother's help. "This is for you," he said, handing her the envelope with a shy smile. Melania carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a drawing by Tommy. He had drawn himself next to her, with the words, "Thank you for believing in me," written in large, uneven letters. Melania smiled, holding the drawing as if it were a treasure. "This is the most special gift I've ever received," she said, kneeling to hug him. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Tommy. You have a very special heart." Tommy's story and his interaction with Melania soon spread, touching the hearts of many. It wasn't just about a visit from a famous figure, but about how a simple, genuine conversation can change a life. Tommy became a symbol of hope in the school community. Teachers began using his story as an example to teach students about empathy, kindness, and the importance of asking difficult questions. Melania also shared the experience in an interview, highlighting Tommy's courage and the importance of listening to children. "Tommy taught me something valuable," she said. "That even in the simplest situations, we can make a profound difference in someone's life by simply listening and offering words of love." Years later, Tommy would look back and realize how that moment had changed his life. He grew into a confident young man with a strong sense of purpose and faith. The impact of that conversation with Melania Trump continued to echo throughout his journey, reminding him that he was never alone, even in the hardest times. And for Melania, that encounter would stand as proof that simple gestures can create powerful change, not just for those who receive them, but also for those who give. The end.